In Umezawa, a village that sat between the red earth of the east and the long dust road that led to the city, people said that truth can hide inside the calabash for a while, but it cannot refuse the sun forever. It was there that Obinna, son of Okechukwu the bread seller, lived with more ambition than peace in his chest. He was a man whose tongue was smooth and whose eyes knew how to measure opportunity the way a farmer measures rainfall. Obinna worked for the big traders in the nearby town, helping people find good houses and parcels of land to rent. The villagers called him the man who sells what he does not own, and he wore the name like a title. Not far from him lived Adaku, a woman whose beauty was like the evening sun, golden, brief, and full of danger. Adaku had tasted the sour palm wine of life too early. Her mother had sold roasted plantain in the market. Her father had died before his beard turned gray, and the city had swallowed her youth. Men came to her with sweet mouths and left her with empty promises. Still, she smiled and powdered her face, because hunger does not respect shame. One hot afternoon, Adaku quarreled with her friend Gozi, who told her to abandon her wayward life and look for honest work. Adaku only laughed and said, "My sister, the road to heaven is narrow, but the road to survival is wide and crooked." That night she slept in her small motor car by the roadside, her pillow a bundle of clothes. But when dawn came, she rose, dusted her wrapper, and greeted the new day like a soldier preparing for war. Across the village square, Obinna faced his own trouble. The compound he rented in town was to be demolished. He needed a new place quickly, but landlords had grown suspicious of single tenants. "These boys of nowadays," one said, "they will fill the house with thieves and midnight visitors." Obinna begged his friend Jamiu, the landlord's messenger, to help. "Tell your master I am not like others," he said. "I bake bread for people's mouths, not lies for their ears." But the landlord refused. He wanted only couples married and settled to rent his fine bungalow at the edge of Umezawa. "When the moon is full," the old man said, "you know which family dances and which one quarrels. A single man brings both trouble and silence." That was how Obinna's heart began to plot, as hearts often do when cornered. "If marriage is what will open the door," he told Jamiu, "then perhaps a shadow wife will do." It was on that same week that fate, with its mischievous grin, led Adaku and Obinna to meet. She was sitting in the palm wine shop beside the market road, her eyes dull from thinking. He entered with dust on his feet and desperation in his breath. One glance, one greeting, and the gods laughed quietly above. "Good woman," Obinna said, "may I buy you a calabash of palm wine?" "I am not a woman to be bought with drink," she replied. "But if your money is eager, I will not insult it." They drank. They talked. Obinna learned she needed a roof. Adaku learned he needed a wife. From that moment, deceit wore the clothes of opportunity. "Let us help each other," Obinna said at last. "You will pretend to be my wife before the landlord, and in return, you will stay in the house until your feet find their own ground." Adaku looked at him long and slow, then laughed. "A fake husband is better than none. But my mouth is not cheap if I play your wife. I must be paid." So they struck a deal, sealed not with kola nut or palm wine, but with the silent agreement of two people who had nothing to lose and everything to hide. When the day of meeting came, Adaku dressed in borrowed lace, tied her headscarf tight, and followed Obinna to the landlord's compound. The old man, Chief Chukwuma, welcomed them with his walking stick and slow smile. "My children," he said, "marriage is like palm oil, sweet, but it stains whatever it touches. Are you ready to live under one roof without turning the sun into thunder?" "Yes, Papa," Obinna lied smoothly. Adaku bowed her head, pretending to be shy. The chief inspected them, nodding. "Good. I see peace in your eyes, though peace sometimes wears the mask of trouble. I will give you the house," Obinna nearly shouted for joy. Adaku smiled faintly, her mind already counting the money she would demand later. That evening, when they entered the new house, Adaku dropped her wrapper on the floor and said, "This place smells of men who have never known suffering. Let me cook. At least hunger will not be our landlord." Obinna ignored her. He was already planning the next lie to tell the chief when he returned for inspection. As the cock crowed for the third time that night, Umezawa's spirits must have whispered among themselves, for they knew that two strangers had planted deceit in the same soil, and deceit, like yam, will grow even when you bury it deep. In the weeks that followed, the new house at the edge of Umuzala became both a blessing and a curse. People said, when two strangers share a roof, the walls learn gossip. Before long, even the lizards on Chief Chukwuma's fence began to whisper. Obinna and Adaku pretended to live as man and wife. Every morning she swept the compound with a vengeance that made the broom fear her, and Obinna went about his trade, wearing respectability like a borrowed wrapper. At dusk, they quarreled over who should cook, who should sleep where, and who should speak first to visitors. "Remember," she would say, "I am your wife only when eyes are watching. When the eyes close, I am myself again." The old chief, pleased that his new tenants appeared orderly, came often to greet them. He would sit under the utila tree and speak of his late wife, whose laughter still haunted the walls. Sometimes Adaku pitied him. Other times she measured the wealth in his compound and thought, if only I had met this one before age made him slow. Across the path, Chief Chukwuma's only daughter Nkem had just returned from the city after many years abroad. She was educated, bright like a new moon, but lonely in the quiet village. When she saw Obinna fetching water from the well one evening, she greeted him with the politeness of a woman who has read too many foreign books. He replied with the charm of a man who had never stopped selling. From that day, Nkem found reasons to pass near the house of the married couple. She would borrow a book, return it late, borrow another. Obinna's heart, foolish as the heart of most men, began to listen to her laughter more than to reason. Each time she smiled, the lie that had built his new life cracked a little at the edge. One afternoon, Adaku caught them talking outside. She laughed, not from joy but from that deep corner of a woman's pride that cannot bear replacement. Later that night she told him, "So this is how you treat your fake wife chasing real trouble in the chief's compound." Obinna barked back, "Mind your tongue, Adaku. We are only neighbors." She hissed, "A snake begins as a rope until it bites," and indeed, the snake had begun to coil, because love, even when born of deceit, still demands its meal of pain. A week later, Chief Chukwuma invited Obinna and his wife for kola nut. They came dressed like festival masks, pretending peace. The chief said, "My daughter speaks highly of you, Obinna. I see how you care for your wife." Such union warms an old man's heart. Adaku forced a smile. Obinna nearly choked on his breath. Nem's eyes met his briefly. It was the look of a spark learning it could start a fire. After that day, everything began to fall apart quietly. Adaku grew restless, roaming the village like a hen that had lost her chicks. She met Jamiu, the same messenger who had helped Obinna get the house at the market square. Jamiu, who had always liked her smile, began to court her with small gifts, a wrapper here, a measure of palm oil there. Adaku listened but kept her heart locked. "A woman who has been beaten by rain," she said, "does not dance at the sound of thunder." Meanwhile, Obinna's nights were no longer peaceful. His dreams were filled with Chief Chukwuma's shadow and Nem's laughter. He would wake before dawn and pace the compound, thinking of lies to polish and truths to bury. One evening, as the wind carried the smell of roasted yam across the village, Nkem came to return a book. They talked, and words turned to laughter, laughter turned to silence, and silence to the kind of gaze that even ancestors cannot interrupt. Just then, Adaku entered the room. She saw, she understood, and she smiled the smile that is neither madness nor forgiveness. That night, thunder broke the sky in two. If you like this story, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this tale. The next dawn, the village woke to rumors. Someone had seen the chief's daughter visiting Obinna's house after nightfall. Someone else swore that Adaku had cursed the compound before leaving for the stream. Chief Chukwuma summoned Obinna in anger. "What abomination are you planting under my roof?" he thundered. "Have I not said that deceit grows legs faster than truth?" Obinna stammered. His lies had become too many to remember. In the confusion, Adaku appeared, dusty from the road. She pointed at him and cried, "Papa, this man is not my husband. We only deceived you to get the house." The chief's stick fell to the ground. Even the goats that grazed nearby stopped chewing. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Chief Chukwuma said slowly, So this is how the young mocked the old by calling lies a cleverness. He ordered them both out before the next market day. Adaku wept until her eyes grew red. Obinna stood silent, staring at the dust like a man reading his fate on the earth. Nkem turned away, her heart wounded by the truth she did not expect to find. As they left the compound, the wind carried the laughter of the villagers who had gathered. In Yumizala, shame travels faster than sound. By nightfall, every ear had heard the tale of the man who rented a house with a borrowed wife. After they were chased from Chief Chukwuma's compound, Obinna and Adaku became strangers again, two dry leaves blown apart by the same wind. They slept in abandoned huts, quarreled over who had caused their ruin, and each blamed the other before dawn. People said, when a drum lies, the dance will expose it. Obinna tried to return to his trade, but no one in Yumizala would rent land through him again. They called him Obinna Anyas, the man whose tongue bends like a river snake. Even the small children laughed when he passed. He would sit by the roadside bakery, staring at the loaves cooling in the morning air, and wonder how a man could lose both bread and honor in one bite. Adaku, meanwhile, returned to the palm wine stall near the market road. Her laughter was loud again, but it had cracks in it, like a pot that once broke and was mended with wire. She told anyone who cared to listen that men were like new gourds, bright outside, sour within. Yet when night came, she prayed quietly that the gods would still remember her name among the living. As the harmattan deepened, fate began to weave its quiet justice. Chief Chukwuma fell ill for many weeks. His daughter Nkem, who had once believed in bright city dreams, now spent her days nursing him and reading from her old books. Sometimes she would pause and stare toward the empty compound where Obinna had lived, and her heart would whisper questions she had no courage to ask aloud. One evening, when the chief's strength had returned a little, he called her close and said, "My daughter, the world has two kinds of wisdom, the one you read in books and the one you learn when people lie to you. Do not hate those who deceived us. They were only mirrors showing us our own foolishness." Nkem bowed her head. That night, she wrote a letter she never sent. Obinna received news of the chief's illness, and shame ate him more than hunger. He decided to go and beg forgiveness, not for the house, but for the peace he had broken. He walked to the chief's compound barefoot, carrying a basket of fresh bread. At the gate he met Nkem, who looked at him with the calm of someone who had finished crying long ago. "Why have you come?" she asked. "To return what deceit took from me, truth," he said. Then he placed the bread on the ground and walked away before the chief could see him. The next market day, Adaku came to that same compound, selling roasted plantain. She saw the bread still by the gate, untouched, and tears filled her eyes. She whispered, "Even the innocent bread cannot enter where lies once slept." Then she turned and left, her feet heavy with a new understanding that the road of falsehood never leads home, no matter how many turns it takes. Years later, the story of Obinna and Adaku became a lesson the elders told at evening gatherings. They would say, "Children, when you see a snake and a lie, strike the lie first. The snake only kills the body, the lie kills the spirit." And so it was said that in Yumizala, truth learned to walk again, slow, patient, unashamed. Adaku found honest work trading palm oil. Obinna became a baker for the mission school. They greeted each other with quiet respect, for guilt that is shared is lighter to carry. When people asked the oldest man in the village what became of them, he smiled and said, "The yam that sprouts twice has learned patience." Both of them now know that a house built on deceit will not survive the first rain. Moral: he who builds his fortune on falsehood will one day roof it with shame. Truth may walk slowly, but it never loses the road home.